Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Unlocked, where we talk about unlocking the potential of you, the people you work with, and the people you do life with. At the time of this recording, I'm offering all of you, yes, my lovely listeners, a free 15-minute communication coaching call. You come with some kind of communication problem, and I give you a solution. My calendar link is in the show notes, so check that out. You may not get the full impact, brilliance, fun, just chummy guy that Park is. You may not get all that from this initial interview. I don't know, maybe you might. But you will get some of his brilliance. And that's what's super cool about this. Park is somebody I met back in December of 2023. We were speaking at the same conference together and we hit it off. Brilliant guy, come from the same world of the branding and marketing space. Neither of us fully do that from the agency side anymore. We have kind of both taken our own paths, but we relate to this idea of story and storytelling and message development. But what's cool about what you're going to learn in this one is how to use it internally as a leader and as a culture builder inside of your organization. Park Howell is known as the world's most industrious storyteller, having grown purpose-driven brands by as much as 600%. He's an EMMY Award Winning 35-plus year veteran of the advertising industry and now consults, teaches, coaches, and speaks internationally to help business, sales, and marketing leaders excel through the stories they tell. He's the host of a really popular podcast called the BusinessOfStory podcast, which is ranked, get this, in the top 10% of downloaded podcasts in the world. Park published Brand Bewitchery in 2020 to help you use this story cycle system to craft story your own self. In 2021, he co-authored the Narrative Gem for Business, and he has developed what's called the ABT model. And, but, therefore. You're going to learn all about this model and how to implement it inside your organization, how to communicate clearly and simply with your people to drive brilliance, engagement, and just healthier cultures overall. Here we come, Park. Mr. Park. Oh my gosh. I'm so excited. This is so cool. Thanks for being here.
Oh, Scott, thanks for having me. You and I got acquainted at the end of last year at the Power Rev Up Summit, and I just loved your presentation and your book on, unlocking all of our potential inside of us.
Well, thanks for the little plug there. I really appreciate that. I don't have to do it myself because you just did it. No, I really appreciated your message coming from the world that we come from of, creative agency stuff. We connected, and your framework for messaging is super powerful. I mean, just in the moment we were sitting there networking and kind of workshopping the ABT model in that session was like, people were just like, they got it. It was so quick. It was so I don't want to talk about that from a marketing standpoint necessarily today. I want to talk about some of these other kind of out of the box ideas you have for how do we unlock leadership or unlock culture within companies using your ABT framework. So first of all, I've rambled on enough. Tell us a little bit about you, where you came from, why you landed where you did.
Yeah, well, I feel like I came from Mars a lot of the time, but I actually came from the Pacific Northwest. And Scott, as you know, I've been in the advertising, branding, marketing world like you, the same stuff you've done for a long, long time. I've done it for about 40 years. I mean, you can judge by the hair color. And so I've had a lot of experience in that area, but I really found the power of storytelling in early 2000s when, digital media, e-commerce, blog posts started taking over the web, and where I ran my agency in Phoenix, Arizona for 20 years, where we used to talk to our clients about owning the influence of mass media. Well, we saw it all happen. The masses have become the media. And there was so much noise out there that I looked for an answer of how do you stand out in this cacophony of communication we all compete in. That's when I really started studying storytelling, first from a Hollywood perspective and then from an influencer's perspective, then business. And, it took me by storm, so much so, Scott, that I wound down my ad agency. I didn't sell it off because I didn't want to be beholden to anybody, but I just used it as a portal to transfer into storytelling. And now all I do is consult, teach, coach, and speak on the power of story in leadership, sales, and marketing communications.
Wow. That's awesome. You do have super gray hair, man. That's amazing.
Hey.
I
I can
know,
see
dude.
where
I
yours
know.
is headed, dude.
I know. I know. I get it. I get it. Oh man. So all right. So let's talk about this. So again, I'm not necessarily in the branding marketing space anymore. You aren't necessarily like leading in the branding marketing space anymore,
We
but
both were really smart. We got out of
we
it,
we
didn't
got,
we?
we hung out that hat. Yes, we did. And now we've created our own entities here, but you still use that framework, as I still use some of the branding framework I use to
Oh,
coach
yeah.
leaders today. But you use this framework of ABT. Explain the ABT
Yeah.
model and why it's so impactful and how leaders can use that inside their organizations.
Yeah. The ABT, and, but, therefore. It's this little simple story framework, deceptively simple looking. It takes some practice to pull off, but it's this framework that builds your narrative intuition. It's based on the three forces of story. What I mean by that is every story, long or short, is based on agreement, act one, setting of the scene, contradiction, act two, the plot twist, the challenges, the problem that we're solving for people, and act three, the consequence of what does this all mean in the end? How did we bring it all together? So the three forces of story of agreement, contradiction, and consequence. And why, Scott, that is so important is it feeds directly to our primal limbic brain, which is what? It's that mechanism, it's our survival mechanism that plays off of patterns, is a problem solving, decision making apparatus within our brain. In fact, it's our buying central brain and it resides in the background, our subconscious. So when we confuse it, when we are annoyingly obfuscating our information, I love that word obfuscation because it just sounds like something that makes no sense. We confuse that brain, it shuts down, and it's going to create a story of its own. And it won't be the story we intended unless we intentionally tell it a story starting with the and, but, therefore framework, because you're delivering it meaning in the way the brain wants to receive it. So that's the ABT: setup, problem, resolution, and, but, therefore, agreement, contradiction, consequence.
Okay, give me a scenario like in the real world where like this story framework. Why is that so important for us? So I get it in the marketing world, but why would leaders care?
Anywhere. Yeah. Well, here's the juxtaposition, the irony that I love so much. Our brains are marvelous. So we've got this frontal neocortex that has been evolving along with us, and it's getting bigger and smarter, and it enables us to create technology just like we're using right here that, of course, has compounded at the rate of Moore's law. And now some argue that's 3 times as fast given AI and so forth. And what that means is we've been able to make these marvelous little devices that the technology and their abilities are compounding at the rate of Moore's law, which means we are spewing so much more information, noise, nonsense into the world that our primal limbic brain is having a hard time saying, what the hell is going on? It's like we are navigating the savannah all over again as our ancestors did. But in this case, it's the savannah of way too much information. It impacts us both online and off. I mean, in your line of work, how many times are you out there working with your people to help them become more engaging, to connect with that person who's completely checked out over here, not to their fault because we are just so bombarded with communication? Here's the thing. Storytelling is the very first technology we ever had as Homo sapiens, or basically storytelling apes. Storytelling came before fire. It came before the wheel. It came before spears and arrowheads. It came before agriculture. Stories are unique to human beings because we use stories to plan, organize, and act with our fellow, Homo sapiens. That's why you use the ancient technology of storytelling to hack through the noise and hook into the hearts of your audiences, be they online or off.
All right. How are we going to use it? So
Take a deep breath.
I get it. We've got this ABT framework.
Yep.
Story is important. Why am I going to use it inside my organization as opposed to outside? I get why I use it outside. Why am I going to use it inside?
internally because, well, there was a study that came out from the Harris poll in Grammarly about a year and a half ago, Skot, and it studied communication and miscommunication within hundreds of Fortune 500 companies in North America. They found that $1.2 trillion are lost annually due to miscommunication, and that equates to one lost day of productivity per person per week because they don't know what the hell you're talking about. You've confused them. They're not sure what to do next. They're spinning their wheels. And it's because we're leading with logic and reason when, as famous American social psychologist Jonathan Haidt says, our minds are story processors, not logic processors. So we have to first create that emotional context around the logic and reason by leading with the human-centric messaging of storytelling. Right there. There's your ROI number one. How do you get your people more efficient, more effective, and more inspired to work within your company? You share stories with them that they can live into and prosper from.
So I'm a leader. I'm trying to motivate my people. Maybe some people are feeling burnt out. Or people are a bit fearful maybe for the job market. I don't know. How do I use this to help mitigate fear or to help build or help encourage my people or, resolve conflict or make meetings more productive? I don't know where you want to go with this. Give me something.
The beautiful thing about the ABT is it is storytelling not from your perspective, but from your audience's perspective. So you have to do your discovery. You have to really understand who they are, what they want relative to your ask or offering, and why is that important to them? That's your statement of agreement. So say you've got a large organization and they've got a major initiative in front of them that is going to be really difficult, but it's just absolutely critical to the success of the business. Well, you might show up and then you got the groups there and say, as a professional here at Acme, whatever, you are absolutely dedicated to the success of this company. And if we can become even more efficient in our practices, then not only will your sales take off, but so will your career. So that's your statement of agreement. You get them nodding, say, yeah, I want that. Everyone in the room is like, yeah, I'm totally, want that, But we've hit a roadblock. There's a problem. And that is the market has moved on us and we have not been efficient in answering that move. So it's impacting all of our efficiencies and our income, quite frankly. So there's your problem. They go, oh shit. Now you got the limbic brain, the survival mechanism saying, oh God, yeah, you're right. I want this, but we got to somehow bridge this gap and overcome it. What do we do? It begs the question. It has to close that story loop. What do we do next? That's where your therefore statement of consequence comes in. Therefore, imagine in 12 months' time, your career doing this as we do this as a company when we make this investment of our time and resources into such and such endeavor. Now, all of a sudden, that endeavor doesn't look so daunting. And in fact, it is playing to what those people want in their life, right? And so they're like, yeah, sign me up, put me in, coach. I want to be a part of this story. Let's go take on this nemesis of change that we got to deal with, knock ourselves out of status quo, because when we get to the other end, I know it's going to be better for me and better for everyone.
Is the therefore statement, is it a visionary statement or is it a like how-to practical statement?
It's ultimately call to action. So it's a great question, Skot. It can be visionary, and you want to picture this. You don't have to use the word therefore. It could say, imagine when we execute on this, or picture this, whatever. You can get them because you want to continue to light up the theater of their mind from their perspective. That's the what of the story. And then the how always comes at the very end. And here's how we're going to do it. So it can be visionary. And it can be, prescriptive. Here are the next steps, but it is ultimately a call to action to get your audience to do something. You want this, and it's important to you because of this, but you don't have it because of this. Therefore, picture it when you get it, when you do this with us. That's the most basic way to think about it. In fact, I was doing this work with Home Depot and their internal sales team, talking to their leaderships with their vendor programs and so forth. And one of the Home Depot guys says, all right, Park, what's the shortest ABT you know? And I go, well, I can boil it down to 10 words. You communicate and care, but bore. Therefore, tell a story.
Love it. The master storyteller in only 10 words.
The 3 forces of story: agreement, contradiction, consequence.
There it is. There it is. So how did you use this with like an internal organization? Like, give me an example where maybe even Home Depot or somebody else you're working with has used the ABT, not as an external marketing term. Maybe it could have been in a sales conversation or an internal conversation with change management or something that they're else dealing with.
Well, think about the ABT, and we have been talking about it here, Skot, as a narrative framework. Here's what you can use to chassis up your stories, right? It goes well beyond that because of how our decision-making, problem-solving limbic brain works. You can use the ABT in 4 different ways. First, really understand how it works as a narrative framework, as you and I have been talking about. Then, one of the best places to use it is as a listening device, a story listening device. So say, Skot, you're on my team and you are super frustrated and you show up pounding on my door one day and you plop down in front of me, and we've all been there, right? You just vomit out all this anxiety and frustration, and it goes on for 10 minutes because you were just so passionate about trying to fix this problem. Well, as the leader, I would hopefully sit there and just listen. I've got the ABT framework down. And when you finally take a breath, when you are played out, I would say, okay, Skot, what I heard you say was you and your team want this, and it's super important to the organization and yourself because of this, but you're extraordinarily frustrated because of this major problem. Therefore, you and I need to collectively get together and find a solution, the way forward, which might even be this. And when you do that, they look at you and they go, oh my God, you said that, Park, better than I said it to you. Thank you for listening, essentially. And then they sometimes will say, you said that so clearly that I realized I didn't tell you one other thing. And it's always that one other thing that is the crux of the problem. So you've built trust, you've built understanding, you've built appreciation with your audience, and they can feel it. So now they are leaning in. They're like, wow, okay, so what do we do about it? And you've got their rapt attention. So ABT is a story listening device to really clarify what their problem is. Second way to use the ABT is then in your presentations. So often we get into our presentations and we are trying to solve 9 different problems. And we lose our audience after problem number 2. Maybe you're good enough, you get to problem number 3, and then they're checked out. The ABT makes you focus that presentation on a singular problem solution dynamic narrative, so you don't lose the brain. Give you a quick example of that. I was literally in court last week. Thank God I was in the jury panel and not at the defendant's table. And it was for a DUI, aggravated driving account that happened up in Flagstaff, Arizona. And the prosecution for the state got up and made this long-winded, kind of wieldy sort of opening statement. And there was 4 different counts against this lady. And then the defense got up, and the defense said, the prosecution is going to talk to you about all these different 4 aggravated driving charges, and they've got a lot of different narratives that go through all of it. You're going to hear that. But make no mistake, this case comes down to one thing: impairment. Was she or was she not impaired at the time of the infraction? I'm going to prove to you that she was not. And to me, that was an absolute masterclass in storytelling. She took all this convoluted stuff that the state began with and boiled it down to one thing. Everybody in the jury now understands what this is all about. That's what you need to do with your internal communications too, is not go in and prosecute a bunch of different problems at one time. Go in with one problem solution dynamic. That's what the ABT is great for. Who's my audience? What do they want relative to my offering? Why is it important to them? But what is the one problem we're solving for to help them get there? All right. So we've got ABT as a narrative tool, we have it as a story listening tool, and we have it as a presentation focus tool. One of the very last things you can use the ABT for, and this is fantastic, we've all been in those meetings that go on for an hour or two, and we said, heck, we could have fixed this in 10 minutes, 20 minutes. Well, in all of your meetings, begin it with an ABT. Get your team super focused on the one thing you are solving for in that meeting. And whenever anybody brings anything else up in the rabbit hole, go and put that in the parking lot somewhere else, and you can deal with that at another time. And have your direct reports, when they are calling a meeting, demand that they first come with an ABT so everyone knows what we're solving for, and then go there. Skot, I've heard it has literally cut hours-long meetings down to minutes because they are so super focused. So that's the power of the ABT in a lot of different forms, because again, it's the way our decision-making, problem-solving brain likes to take on challenges.
So cool. I mean, when I first met you, and it was all about the marketing of yourself and the marketing of your business and things like that. It's like, I get it, I get it. And it's a pretty cool framework for all of that. I think it simplifies things. It makes it, a lot of the convoluted positioning stuff that you go through. It's like, no, let's just get down to the core essence of it. Like, it's simple, but yet it's not always easy, to come up with those things. So to really train yourself and focus and practice on that is so important, but to use it internally the way you've laid out these ideas is really cool. I never thought about them that way. Yeah. And so I love that. Let me ask you this. I'm going to throw a thing at you, and I go, you know what, Park, I hear you on the meeting thing, but we always have like so many problems that we're in so little time. So when we have a meeting, we have to address 10 things. Like, there's no other choice. We have to do 10 things, Park. Mm-hmm. Like, what do you say to somebody that's like in the corporate space? They're like, we only get everybody together once a week, and everybody has their own agenda, and everybody's like, and then we get derailed, and we're talking about Nancy's thing, and then we're talking about Joe's thing. And it's like, it's chaos.
Yeah. Well, I push back on that all of the time. You're wasting your time and your people's times if you're taking on 10 things at one time. Our brains just aren't wired. They're not built to be able to do that. It's one thing at a time. We are not good multitaskers. So what I'll often do is someone would come to me and they say, okay, Park, I hear what you're saying, but I have these 3 things or 5 things that I got to make sure we talk about. Then from a branding standpoint, this as well as anyone, Skot, you say, okay, what's the through line? What do they all have in common? What's the one thing that if we can solve all of these things is really going to manifest itself in a great way within this organization? Remember Lee Iacocca? He might have been a little bit before your time, head up of Chrysler. And, he was famous for coming in and saying, okay, we've got all these brands, we've got all these models and whatever, but what's the one thing that connects them all together? What's that one through line storyline? And it certainly worked for him and his auto manufacturer. So let's do that when you're going into a big corporate, boardroom to state your case. Don't come in with a whole bunch of shotgun approaches to a lot of different problems. You are going to lose your audience immediately, because we storytelling apes are not built to solve problems that way. One problem at a time. And so what is that through line? That's what I would say. And that's where the ABT comes in again. What's the one thing we're talking about?
Brilliant. Because I will come and say, hey, I've got these 10 things. You're going to be like, okay, I get that, but you're too in the weeds. Yeah. It's too in the weeds. Like, let's zoom out a little bit and look at it and say, oh, there's the common thread. Like, right. That's the thing that we're looking to really solve in this thing.
And I'd ask you to prioritize those 10 things. Say you come in, your hair's on fire, right? And I've got to cover these 10 things. And I say, okay, that's great, Skot. Those are all important. Let's put them in order of importance. Okay. What's number 1 and why? What's number 2 and why? And so forth. And through that why, you're going to find the through line. They say, okay, you know what? Your whole argument here is efficiency. It's everything you're talking about here is surrounded around efficiency. So let's set up an ABT that talks about we want to be efficient, but we're not currently efficient. Therefore, we're going to be efficient. I mean, as basic as that sounds, that's that one singular dynamic. And then you introduce that. And as you bring in these other challenges, you demonstrate how it's impacting efficiency so that your people have a way to hang that overall message onto one thing. And then you've got their undivided attention. And, honestly, you're doing them a favor because now they can digest it and act on it way easier than giving them a smorgasbord of stuff to try to dine on.
That's right. Love it. I love it. Are you doing this for companies internally and externally when you go in and work with companies?
Yeah, like right now, I'm doing a ton of work with Walmart Canada. They have a goal of training thousands of their store associates through, I think they have 408 stores throughout Canada. And I've been working with them for the last couple of years. All of it is in the L&D. And the one thing we're solving for is most of the people that are taking the courses are managers, mid-managers that are moving up into leadership roles. And the leaders above them are saying, we want to teach them to become much clearer, more compelling communicators using storytelling. So we start and really focus on the ABT and demonstrate. And like in one case, I took a 17-page document that they had around removing all plastic bags from their 408 stores and boiled it down to 3 sentences using the ABT. And when I did it for the leadership that wrote the whole thing, they looked at me as some sort of storytelling Svengali. They're like, how in the hell did you do that? Take 17 pages and boil it down to this one paragraph that everybody understands. And as I love to say is, it's simply, you got to understand the magic if you're going to cast a spell. And the first trick in your storytelling playbook is the and, but, therefore. It's not something I invented. It's literally been around since the beginning of time. It's just very few people have heard of it or know how to implement it inside and outside of their organizations.
That's awesome, man. I love it so much. I love it so much. You're a great person to talk to and hang with. And I think people should engage with you because not only is your framework awesome and you're 100% competent, but you're just a good dude. I mean, it's just like, all the above. So if people what can people do to understand more about you and get more value from what you provide to the world? You've got a show, you've got this whole framework, you've got an online course, you've got consulting and coaching you do. Like what do people do to engage with you?
The best place to do is number one, hit me up on LinkedIn. That's where I am the most. It's just my name, Park Howell. I'm pretty easy to find. I'm not sure there's another one on LinkedIn. Hit me up there. And when you send your friend requests, let me know you heard through Skot's show here. That'd be great. Number two, visit me over at BusinessOfStory.com. I got just a ton of free storytelling resources for you there. If you would like to take a deep dive into the ABT, you can take my micro training course. It's just under an hour long, 3 modules. You'll learn all about the ABT and how to use it immediately. You'll find that at businessofstory.com/ABT. And then, as you had mentioned earlier, I've got a podcast, The Business of Story, that I've run for over 8 years now. And I've got a new storytelling artist. You helped me kick off this year. Thank you very much. With the launch of your new book, roll a new show out every Monday. So you can hear from just many, many marvelous storytelling minds from around the world.
And you have had some awesome guests on that show. So,
thank you, including you.
Oh, yes. Oh, did I send what? Is that what it is? Okay. Yeah. I did. No, I appreciate it, man. It was fun hanging out with you there, but no, seriously, your guest list is impressive. And
thanks,
the impact you've had is impressive. Your show's great. I hope people will engage with you more. So thanks, Park, for hanging out with me and the show. I appreciate it. I hope everybody got some because I know I did. Every time I talk to you, I get some.
Well, I appreciate it. And all I would share as a final closing remark is as your listeners grow as more compelling and confident communicators using storytelling, just remember that the most potent story you will ever tell is a story you tell yourself. So make sure that one is epic.
And, but, therefore, ABT. ABT. So you're going to remember this because it's simple. And that's what we do when we deliver. What we should do when we're delivering communication is keep it simple. We start with the agreement. hey, we're all on the same page. Let's all get on the same page with what this thing is. Let's understand the story, understand what we're trying to achieve, and kind of be there together. Are we in agreement? Yes, this is the way it is. This is what we want. Contradiction. But there's a gap. We have to fill this gap, but we have to label the gap so that we create desire and this eagerness to learn and to go, oh, yes, that thing. Yeah, I need that. But wait, oh yeah, you're right. I do have a problem. So there's all these issues. Then we talk about the consequence. So therefore, we need to do this. Imagine if we could do this. This is how we're going to achieve it. So simple, so profound. But if we do it, we can increase engagement, we can increase business, we can do all types of things. This stat, $1.2 trillion is lost because of poor communication. $1.2 trillion. That's a lot of money. Well, if we could clearly communicate, we could function better as a team, as a company, as an organization, as a leader. How can we do that? Well, if we use the ABT model in different areas of our life, we might just tap into some of that potential. We can use it as a listening tool. We can use it for presentations. We can use it for meetings. It's not just the marketing stuff we're talking about. We're talking about building culture and healthy people. Park, you're the man. I really appreciate you. Thanks for having me on your show, but more than that, thanks for being on mine as well. If you want to find out more information about me or check out the show notes where there's going to be more information and links to the things referenced in this episode, visit skotwaldron.com. And lastly, I'm asking for a little bit of love, just a little bit. So please take a moment, follow, rate the show. The algorithms like that. It helps me get the word out. I really appreciate it. Thank you. And until next time, stay unlocked.